What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of this week's Brick Belt Mindset Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and subscribing each week. It truly brings me a lot of joy. I have a special guest for you guys today. This guy is somebody that I truly am inspired by. I love all the things that he has going on. He is a 3 times Crossfit Games athlete. He is the co-founder of Crossfit WestChase down here in Tampa, Florida. Guys, help me welcome Aaron Hanna. What's going on, man?
Dom, thanks for having me, man. It's been so awesome the last year since you guys came here and became a part of the gym and started coaching and everything like that. Super happy to be on here and talk with you. We talk so much all the time.
Yeah.
When we're just in the gym or working or doing something or other. So at least we're recording this one. Hopefully come up with something good here.
I know, man. It's cool to kind of like get into the aspect of like, you know, talking with people that you talk to every day. Like the fact that you press record of a genuine conversation, it makes it that much more meaningful, right? You can go back and reflect. I feel like we've had, like you said, a lot of great conversations and like they aren't recorded, but they're, you know, in our heads. So kind of like circling back through those to some of the points that we talk about today, it'll be really cool to kind of like, you know, refresh and you know, reflect on some of these topics that we talk about.
For sure. I want to keep this as organic for me as possible.
Yeah.
Just sitting in the gym, working on something and chit-chatting.
For sure, man.
I don't want the fact that this microphone or the camera's on to change into things.
Not at all. Yeah, man. So kind of like for those of the people out there that don't know you in the CrossFit space or just in the overall sense of being an owner, kind of give us like a background of like your status of like, you know, where you're at right now in your life and, you know, where you kind of came from in the sense of like being in the fitness industry.
Where I'm at right now, a lot going on at the moment,
yeah,
which I wouldn't have it any other way. I always knew that I was into working out, fitness, and I'm sure like you, played a bunch of sports growing up. And ever since I was a teenager, I always envisioned myself owning a gym. What kind of gym? I didn't know. When I was 23, I found CrossFit, and now I'm 34 now. So a little over a decade. And I was able to wear quite a few hats in that space between just joining as a member. My buddy Guy and I, who we started the gym, one of our other co-owners, we joined a gym, CrossFit Pinellas. Funny too, I can relate because I know so many people, and this is coming from me being an athlete my whole life, and the common theme you always hear is how intimidated people are to start.
Yeah. And
so Guy says, hey, we should try this thing called CrossFit. And I remember vaguely seeing a little bit of it on the games, on TV on the games at one point. And I was like, oh man, that stuff looks crazy. I know they're like pretty athletic, but,
yeah.
And I had something coming up that day and I could have easily canceled it and gone to the first CrossFit class, but I didn't because I was nervous.
Yeah.
And so we didn't go to CrossFit that day. We went the next day.
Wow.
And then the rest was history.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we started CrossFit Pinellas and then we were just members there. I didn't even know it was going some guys get into CrossFit because they want to get into it sport-wise. I didn't even know it was a sport, really.
Yeah.
I remember that was like 2012, and the owner at the gym, his name was Kerry. He's like, hey, man, I know you're out of town, but I need you to do 7 minutes of burpees and film for me. And I was like, bro, I'm on vacation. I'm not filming myself doing burpees for you. Like, yeah, I know that was the first workout of the Open. I didn't even know what the Open was.
Yeah.
So I went I was like naive, but it was fun. And we'd go to the CrossFit gym, and then we'd go like to the regular gym later on in the day or whatever. And we hadn't like fully dove into that, and we were just members for a while. Later that year, we got our L1s, became coaches. Shortly after that, I was like, okay, maybe this is my thing. Maybe I'm kind of zeroing in on that gym ownership that I'd always dreamed of. And then a few years after that, we ended up opening our first affiliate in 2015.
That's awesome, man. I feel like, you know, just what I took from that conversation is like that one decision could have skewed you from all of that. And it's pretty exciting to see, like, you know, that decision you made with, you know, skipping the one day and then going back the next day kind of altered the trajectory of like where your life went. And it's funny because like a lot of people like yourself have been faced with that same exact obstacle. Like, oh, like I don't want to go just because of fear. And I say a lot on this podcast is like a lot of decisions that we don't make are paralyzed by fear. So like the fact that you were able to, you know, overcome that and just do it scared and get into that space and now look at you in this position where you're doing what you love to do. And, you know, I would say you're serving your purpose through your passion, which is pretty exciting, man.
Yeah, and speaking of fear, I think that's still something I grapple with. We all grapple with to some degree. There's things that I'm about to start really soon that I'm nervous about or to some degree suffer from imposter syndrome or whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, just start, you know, and
absolutely.
So I'm embracing a little bit more of that mindset. But what's funny, though, as far as getting started in the trajectory or whichever way your life could have went, gym owners out there, something that I think they still need to improve on is the gym we ended up at, CrossFit Pinellas, was not the first gym we called.
Really?
The guy, they didn't answer the phone at the first gym or call a guy back.
Wow.
And that would have been probably where we went. So then he called another one, and that's where we ended up. And I'm super thankful that that's where our start got. It was just funny how just a phone call here or whatever, where gym owners need to be better about that.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely dive into some more of that. But to kind of like, run off of what you were saying in the first, the second part about, imposter syndrome and some of the things that you have going on, kind of walk us through what you feel and what that means to you as far as like imposter syndrome.
Well, it's funny because when it comes to athletics, my whole life I've been super confident. So even when I was getting started, I was like, well, I don't really know quite how to do a ring muscle up yet, or I can't do more than like 12 double unders in a row. But I'm going to sign up for that comp anyways. Yeah. I'm still going to go give that guy a run and see what happens.
I love that.
So I want to channel that same confidence into various business ventures and things of that nature, where, okay, whatever, insert subject line here, and I'm getting into this, and I don't have a ton of experience there, but like, who cares? Just the only way to get it is to dive in and do it. So I remind myself of that a lot, and I tell my wife to remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah.
At the same time, and I think I'm getting better at that part.
That's the goal, man. 1% a day, right? Like I always say, it isn't about what you are going to do. It's about what you are doing, right? Like it's great to kind of have those, astronomical goals, or to have that gap between where you're at and where you want to be. But it's so much more important about what you're doing right now. And to kind of like lead into the next part and the segue through is, you fast forward, how many years now have CrossFit WestChase been operating and open?
Our first affiliate's almost 8 years old. Our second one is almost 5 years old, and we're getting ready to open a third gym here this summer.
That's amazing, man. I mean, talk about growth in a very short period of time. And I know, like early on, for myself being an entrepreneur, and you being an entrepreneur in so many different realms, you probably have battled a lot of things, like not only like in life, but just in business. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you made early on that you felt that were, impactful and vital to what you do now in your success?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably make a whole episode on all the mistakes that I've made, or we've made along the way. I think in the beginning, maybe just kind of not treating it like a real business yet, not prioritizing systems as much, not focusing so much on the professionalism part. We were still fortunate. We still grew pretty quick. And I know not everyone is as lucky to have that happen.
Yeah.
But I think maybe focusing on some other stuff that was a little bit distracting and that didn't really kind of lead us toward the end goal of growing the gym and helping as many people as possible. At the same time, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because some of the stuff you do, it may not have an immediate ROI, but that it's still making your gym better, and it's still contributing to everything. When that customer walks in and they're overwhelmed and they see this and that and that, and you kind of like, they turn like space cadets.
Yeah.
We all do it to some degree when we're going to new things. So like I said, just kind of like keep the important stuff important. But I mean, if you do a good job, if you care, if you have coaching, if you have good, fun, safe, results-driven workouts, and people have a good time there, it's kind of hard to not succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even success itself is subjective. Some people look at it like, dollar bills or success. You look at it, people that as doing a service is success. There's so many different units of measure when it comes to defining what success is. And I think at the same time, it's like defining what a loss is. I'm sure, like, early on, you probably, like you said, making mistakes and having those things. What were some of the losses that you felt like you learned the most from? Like, that stuck out to you? I know obviously there's probably tons when you are, this far into the game. But what are some of the losses that you really felt like defined, turning points for you in your career as far as an owner?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like some specific losses. Most stuff that happened, first off, I'm too emotional when it comes to business, but the fact that I'm aware of that lets me kind of counter it.
Yeah.
I think some people, whether they fall on the emotional or the logical spectrum or somewhere in between, it's fine to be wherever you are. That's just, it is what it is. But being aware of it is what enables you to overcome it to some degree. Partnerships can be kind of tricky and don't always work out. Fortunately, there's three of us. Everything's good. We make everything. We've been rolling on almost a decade, so obviously. But some other partnerships in the beginning with various projects and things surrounding the gym. I don't want to say it's a loss because it's like, oh, well, shouldn't have done that. Now you do that again. So it's a good thing. and as far as like learning from what happened. But I mean, as far as specific losses, I think you just chalk it up to just inexperience, and it's fine. Like, hey, if we tried this, and don't be afraid to try. If like you mess it up, you can try again.
Yeah.
You know? So it's also kind of like the framing your mindset that way too is, well, at least I'd rather try and not work, and at least I'd know.
Yeah.
You know? Or just not kind of giving something the attention it deserves, and just kind of like, hey, here's this. If you build it, they will come. But it doesn't always work that way. Probably more often than not, it doesn't. So it's like, hey, man, if you're going to do it, just freaking do it.
Just, get into it. I think, you know, that is something a lot of people battle with, especially with entrepreneurship, right? It's like, are you getting into it for the wrong reason? Like, I think that it does take a lot more than just interest in a topic or interest in a field or interest in, you know, some type of career to be the only thing that catapults you into launching a business. And then I think a lot of people get into it because it's like, I'm interested in it. Oh, this seems cool, so I'm going to start it. And I think, you know, somebody told me a long time ago, a few things help you build success in a business. It's like, find a problem and solve it. Find your purpose and then fulfill it. And it's like, those two things go hand in hand to kind of help with being successful in your field or in your career, in your business.
Yeah, business is just solving problems for other people.
Exactly. It's like, or doing a service, right? And that's, you know, in itself solving a problem. And I think, you know, kind of going off what you just said, that they're not really, from what I'm taking, is like, they're not really losses, they're lessons learned, right? I think people look at it like a loss, and it's like, all right, well, now I've lost and I give up. Like, this is where I'm at. What was the turning point for you? Like, when you looked at something like that, what was your mindset? Like, kind of walk us through, where were you at when you were like, okay, I took a loss, I'm treating it like a lesson. How do I make that better? Like, what mindset do you take towards that?
I think like maybe when you're younger, it can kind of be like crushing or whatever. But in the end, I mean, I kind of have this view, like we're just like this little speck on Earth in the giant universe throughout time. Yeah. So it's like, why get so upset over something to some degree when we're the land of opportunity? You can just try it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so also once you have kids, it kind of, it changes your life too, as far as like what's important and what's not important. And you're like, well, this thing that happened today for someone that's like too caught up in it, too caught up in the moment, it defines them too much. Yeah. And I'm like, at the end of the day, like whether this happens or doesn't happen, like, I'm sure you can hear him now, I'm still going to come home to clock into my second job, and the kids don't care. They just want me to be present. So it's like, hey, does my life really change? Like, no. Okay. Well, if you can answer that objectively, then keep rolling.
Absolutely, man. That's beautiful. And, you know, just from me observing the last year, man, your family, I think, plays such a huge role in, you know, your overall like happiness and fulfillment. I'm sure you can probably touch more on that. But having, you know, loving kids, loving wife, and being able to come home to that, and that doesn't change, does probably help what you do make it a lot easier, right? So I'm sure like early on you probably battled that mindset of like being present here, being present in the gym. What was something that, you know, not only like, you know, maybe caused an obstacle, and then what's something that you actually like treated as a, like, you know, as a success? I'm sure like basically what I'm trying to say is like, what was something you battled with first, with the balance of like what, like work, business, then being an athlete, and then also like family? Like, what was some things that you may have battled early on?
Fortunately, the timing when we opened, it was a good spot in our lives, right? Mid-20s, not married yet, no kids yet, no like real responsibility to a degree. Yeah. As far as like mortgages and all these other things that start adding up as you go through life. So it was like if I had to start over now, I don't think I would be nearly in the same spot, because there's just too much going on at this point. There's too many people that rely on me. There's too many bills to pay. Yeah. But back then, the position we're at, we're like, hey, we can kind of chase this dream for a little while in that phase of life that we were in. And so that the timing worked out more than anything to prevent those problems. Like if someone in my current situation wanted to open a brand new gym from scratch without the experience and without kind of everything and all the sports is right now, man, it would be so hard. Yeah. Like, because in the beginning, it's like, you coach some morning classes, after some night classes, then, okay, cool, we're growing, we can hire coaches, we can not be on the floor so much, we can start working on the business and not just stuck in it all the time. And then as you grow, you're able to kind of keep, okay, well, here, you can take over that, and you can take over this, and you can kind of get yourself in a position. Because once you start having to get married, have kids, buy houses, and all that other stuff, like, yeah, it's not the same anymore. For sure. So we were just fortunate that we went for it at the right time.
I can imagine, man. I'm sure, like you said earlier, it's like you clock into your second job, and I think that's probably a job that's 24/7. Like, it doesn't really matter what's going on in the 9 to 5 or whatever the case is. That job takes priority number one, right? Like, those are your babies compared to the baby that you just chose to have.
Yeah.
I'm sure, most gyms and owners you see have a lot of like battles with life and work. Like, they bring work home, and then it's all about like work, and it's all about life. When it's lifetime, it's all about work in life. So what's some efficiencies that you notice with other of your colleagues or other gym owners that they struggle? What kind of advice would you give them to kind of balance everything out?
In the beginning, it's tough. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You got to keep the lights on. You got to do what you got to do. But in the end, I'm always going to put my family first. Inefficiency wise, I think there's a lot, but there's a lot I can still improve on, even where we're at, even the success we've had and the growth we've had, there's still things we can improve on. Nothing's ever perfect. There's always improvements that can be made. There's always mistakes that I made or shortcomings. But being aware of those and actively trying to fix them is the key there. But just like anything, not just whether you own a gym, whether you're doing anything, whether in the corporate world or on other businesses or wherever, you have to have that balance, man. And I think too often we just get caught up in working. We kind of forget like what's important.
Yeah.
Some of these people that we help, you see these, they go after and they chase their career, and at the same time they sacrifice their health in the pursuit of success in the corporate world or whatever, and then they end up trying to spend a bunch of money to recoup that. And we help people do that all the time. So I think just being balanced before it gets out of whack. So obviously you got to provide, so you got to do what you got to do, but also realizing what's important too. Like, get off social media, stop scrolling your phone, stop wasting time doing this. You spend time doing what you actually want to do.
Yeah. I can agree. I think, just watching you operate in your business, you're probably one of the most present, not only owners, but like leaders in your gym. And I think, I've been in the 5th gym. I've actually had the opportunity to coach them, and seeing like the difference in, nothing against anybody else, but seeing the difference in how present you are with your members, with your staff. And like, I think like that system just speaks for itself, why, you're successful, what you do. And I'm sure like this question's already answered, but you feel like that decision was more of a choice than a chore, correct?
For sure. Like,
getting into your business, it's like, all right, this is not a chore. This is a choice. Like, I'm here because I want to be here. Like, you're doing the class WODs with members. And I've been in a lot of gyms where a lot of high-level athletes and a lot of owners seclude themselves from that.
Which is crazy.
Which is great. So I'm sure like you've seen how difficult it can be to be successful when you're not even present in your gym, right? Which is crazy because people think that there's some type of separation between a member and a coach, or a member and an owner. And I don't think there really is, because we all do the same exact thing. We all get down, we all sweat, and it's all, all about that shared suffrage. But
for sure, there's a couple of things there. As far as like being a choice or a chore, like at some point, like, yeah, if you don't have the runway, the capital to hire a bunch of coaches, you got to do all the coaching. Like, it is what it is at that point. But I think it's so quick to get burned out. I've always related like 1 hour on the floor doing like a really good job coaching like a CrossFit or a group fitness class. That's like as taxing as 3 to 4 hours of doing something else.
Yeah.
Like, you are on the whole time. If you're doing a good job, like you're constantly dealing with this. And every hour you have a new group of 20, 30, whatever more people coming through. It's not like you're just dealing with the same person for a couple hours. You're on the phone, like bathroom breaks, grabbing water, doing this. Like, it's like few and far between. Yeah. You are so focused and dialed in. Our coaches are so awesome. At some point you grow. I think there's some research out there showing like once you hit like 150 person community, it's hard to keep that communal feel, and it's hard for one person or an owner to like exactly know what's going on with everybody.
Good.
And once you pass that by hundreds of people, so the next thing you need to do is, well, if I can't have a personal touch point on every single person across multiple locations, because you cannot scale people.
Yeah.
I can't scale myself. Okay, so what's the next thing? Well, why don't we get coaches that are awesome, better coaches than me? Create careers for them, and as many paths as we can to provide and allow them to work hard and grow. And out, so my mindset now is like, okay, no longer is it physically possible to service every single individual. But if I take really, really good care of the coaches, they can spread that web out and they can go start servicing everybody really well. I think that's the answer as you grow, as far as like, and now, we're at a point now where I coach because I want to. I coach a couple classes a week, so I still stay on top of it, still stay sharp, still maintain those connections. But also, you're in the gym all the time still. I still work out the classes every day. I do the class. That point you mentioned is mind-blowing to me. If you own a gym and you don't walk the walk. If you just talk the talk and no one ever sees you working out and the head coaches don't work out, or they're it's all community based. All you're doing is damaging your community, and you're telling those members like, hey, you do that workout, but I'm better than you and I'm going to do this workout. I don't care how fit you are. You can still do your class WOD a couple days a week, and it doesn't affect you. And I'll challenge anybody that wants to say something about that, especially if you're at a high level and your volume's high. You could totally add in class workouts.
Absolutely.
I'm not at the level that I once was, but it's totally possible. But you got to want to do it, and it makes a big difference in your gym too. Like I see traveling around or whatever, and you can kind of identify some of those problem areas. As far as just like, hey, that something just seems a little bit off about that community, the culture, the coach, or whatever. It usually circles back to the answer lies in the community. We're tribal by nature.
Yeah,
you can't fight that. We're not lone wolves.
Absolutely, man. I love that. That's huge. Just like you said, like most chefs eat their own food, right? Like it's like you guys, we do in-house programming here at CrossFit WestChase, and people still find time to do it's hard to do your own workouts, right? Like that's anything else. Like it's hard to like program for the masses, and then on top of that, be like, all right, I'm going to do this workout. But it goes back to it. Like you guys have that tone set for all the coaches to do the class workouts, and it's like a will. Like people want to do it. It's not like, oh, I'm forced to do this class workout. Like I enjoy every workout that I do. This is the first gym that I've been in, and I'm completely fine with that. Being a programmer myself, it's hard to be like, all right, I'm going to drink someone else's juice or eat someone else's food, but like I want to. And this all goes back to from the top, it flows down. Like, and I think that's how most things should be placed in order.
But you have that balance too. Like you hit the class workouts, and then you do your own separate stuff, and which obviously is your business too.
Yeah.
And and I think good gyms should allow people to do that to some degree too.
Yeah, I think it's more like a freedom thing. I agree. It's like freedom, but it's like,
we're all adults, and if you're paying a premium membership, like why can't you finish the class workout and be totally out of the way of the class and hit some accessory stuff that you enjoy doing? Like why should you have to drive to Crunch, LA Finish, or some other gym to do that?
Exactly.
What's the point in that?
I agree, man.
You know what I mean? And obviously you got to make sure class has right away. You're not loud when the coach is talking. You have the space to do it, and you should be able to do it.
I agree, man. It's all about order, and I think you guys, all of us at WestChase do a great job at like complying with that order. But yeah, man, as we're wrapping up this episode, I wanted to kind of touch on a few more points. Somebody listening to this podcast is absolutely have that in their mindset of they want to start their own gym. They want to get started. They want to do some type of, next steps, whether that's mental, notes, goals, whatever the case is. What would be something that you would speak to them and be like, hey, this is where you should start from my own experience?
Someone that wants to open a gym?
Open up a gym or start a brand or start some type of, next level entrepreneurship. You've obviously had a lot of experience. What's something that you would advise for them to do? And then what's a myth that they can already like kind of debunk from the start? Like that's not something you need to be.
I would say a myth. I mean, one of the myths, and it's kind of common knowledge, is like there is no perfect time. And I still struggle with that myself. I'm like, well, when this happens, I'll be able to do that. When I accomplish this, then it's the same stuff that people said, well, I got to get a little bit fitter before I come to CrossFit class. That's like saying like, well, I got to get a little bit smarter before I go to school.
Yeah.
I got to pray a little bit more before I can go to church.
I like that. Yeah.
Like,
that's a great analogy.
So as far as like that would be the myth. And like I said, I'm guilty on many levels of that. But as far as opening up your gym, get your plan going, man. I mean, we could do a whole episode on opening your gym.
Yeah.
It comes on to everything from finding the right location, making sure your demographics support what you're trying to do. Whether you're trying to find that location. All right, so here, are you going to rent? Are you going to try and buy? What's your visibility like? Do you have a broker helping you in the process for the lease negotiations? And when it comes down to everything for build out money, where is your finances coming from? Is that coming from yourself? Are you raising capital? Do you have partners?
Yeah.
We could really dive pretty deep on there. Do you have enough runway to allow you to open and not be totally in the thick of it and be able to hire a couple people? And do you have good sales and marketing in place? Have you set up like proper CRM channels and lead follow-ups before you even get started? So, have you launched a good pre-sale campaign? Like you could really, there's all kinds of stuff you can dive in there. I mean, as far as like specific, I think people maybe get caught up in like, oh, I got to have this equipment or I got to have that. Like, and then like the equipment, it doesn't matter, man. Like I said before, if you come in and you have good coaching and you provide a quality product, obviously you have a clean gym, stuff like that. But, that supersedes having, spending thousands of dollars to have 12 air runners or something like that, which is a luxury in the beginning.
Absolutely.
Start basis, like our first gym we opened, like we had 3 rowers. What was it?
Yeah.
We should just hit the work. Like, I don't even know how we program workouts like that. I can't even recall. Now the point where like each gym has dozens and dozens of machines, so we can get these people on and get people off and do that stuff. So like just start small, man. And as far as I think too many people like they start in a small building and they have success, they grow and they start. Don't move until you're bursting at the seams. And then when you do move, don't go crazy. Don't go from 2,500 square foot to 10,000 square foot.
Yeah.
Don't take your there's also the awesome book I read somewhere over here, Profit First. And the guy, he was an accountant turned CrossFitter, and basically saying like, hey, make sure you pay yourself first. Don't obviously reinvest back in the business, but don't say, okay, we finally got this and we're making X amount, so let's go ahead and let's jump up to this. And now I'm back to square one. I have a huge facility again that I got to try and fill again. Don't kind of keep chasing that. Pay yourself, have a plan, and then I think it's always good to own real estate. If you can own the building you're in,
this equity,
that's great, because now you're running a business on your terms. You don't have to worry about anything else happening, and you're probably an appreciating asset to some degree long term. So I guess in a very broad sense, that's what I'd be. That's what I would say. Happy to talk to anybody too.
That's awesome, man.
To help.
Man, I appreciate your time. We're going to head into the last segment, but I just want to take a second and give you your flowers, is what I always say, and just appreciate all the lending hands and the olive branches that you've lent to me, and I've seen you do with people at countless times just over the last year. So I appreciate your mindset, and I think anybody listening to this, Aaron, has so much knowledge, and I think that this channel is going to be able to open up, in this episode will be open up to that river of knowledge that you have for people to kind of come in and take from. So I appreciate your time, man, and if you have any other closing remarks before we end the last segment, please touch on.
I appreciate you, man. I wish you weren't moving.
I know, man. Me too. Well, we got
back, right?
Oh, absolutely, man. No question.
Does Sid know that?
Yeah, she has no choice now. It's my choice, my chance now to get the choice made.
Yeah, something we talked about earlier. Trust your intuition, but like with a grain of salt. Don't be so overly passionate that you're ignoring things in the sake of excitement. Still keep a level head. Again, trust your gut, but know when to trust your gut and when not to trust your gut, because we all lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
Whether subconsciously or subliminally or one way or another. So there's been many times I'm like, okay, I've got a good intuition about this. Let's give it a shot. And then I'll bounce that stuff. I ask other people for help all the time. Bounce something off you, or there's quite a few other people that have a great relationship. And I'll talk to them like, hey, what do you think about this? And they'll give me honest feedback. Yeah. So talk to other people, like use other people, hire a coach, whatever it may be. Keep dreaming hard, but use others to help as well, because often it feels good to help other people. Yeah. So when someone comes to me like, hey, I got a bunch of these questions, I'm like, awesome, I can't wait to answer them for you. Yeah. Crush it,
Absolutely.
And I got to remember that other people feel the same way. So don't ever let that ego get in the way to think you can't be like, hey, I don't know what to do here. I think this is what I should. What do you think? You might glean a thing or two from someone else.
I love that, man. The feedback loop is so important. So we're heading into our last segment, guys. If you've been listening, my guests always have to end with their last 5. These questions can be answered with one word or one sentence.
You sent them to me ahead of time.
You have some time to think.
It's kind of deep. I don't know.
All right, question 1. What is a saying or quote that you live by?
Tell me yours first.
Mine, I have a couple, but one that really sticks out to me is you can't be anything you want, but you can be everything that you are. a lot of people listening to that, they're like, oh, of course you can be anything you want. But in itself, me being everything that I am is being anything that I want. So that's one of my favorite ones to live by. I have a ton, but that's one that, I continue to remind myself is that I can't be anything that I want, but I can be everything that I am.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Honestly, I've between some of the stuff I read on like Stoicism and things of that nature, and I want this to be taken the right way, but it's remember that you are going to die, right? We all have a finite time on this planet, so it's like, why not? Why not ask that cute girl out? Why not start that business?
I love that, man.
Why not try? Because sooner or later, you're not going to get the chance to, And I mean that in like a really good way. I don't want it to be a side one.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you were fortunate enough that like you weren't born a snail. Like you're born a human.
Absolutely.
And you get all these awesome opportunities. So just why not? Why not you?
Yeah.
Right? And
I love that.
There's always that measure of that level of self-doubt to some degree. So, but I think sometimes the thing that scares us the most is what if it actually works?
That's true.
I know that was one of the ones.
No, that was perfect. That's one of the better ones that I've heard from, that's that first question. That was brilliant. That was brilliant, man. I love it. The next one, man, you kind of touched on this earlier, but what is a myth that you have found to be false in your career? I know you talked about this a little bit earlier, but
that you got to know everything before you start. Start. Not necessarily fake it till you make it, but just get started.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Number 3, what is your source of inspiration?
My family.
That was easy. I knew that was coming. All right. Number 4, what used to matter to you that no longer does anymore?
I guess what other people think.
That's a good one.
I think I'm steadily, if I was here before, I'm steadily creeping up further more from like, I'm going to do this anyways, regardless of what you think, or regardless of what I may perceive and think. Because in the end, everyone's worried about themselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
We're wired that way.
And when you're doing something like, oh, well, what will everyone else think of me? But they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. It's just like we're in the middle of a workout and there's someone that's new and they're like, well, what are all these experienced people going to think when I'm in the middle of my thrusters or whatever? But guess what? They're not watching you.
They're not.
They're worried about them, their reps and their workout and their breath in that moment. They don't care about you. And they mean that in a good way too. They care about a lot of people, but in the end, it's just natural. We care about ourselves. So don't worry about what other people think because they're not thinking about you either.
Exactly. I love that, man. That was brilliant. All right, last one. It is finish this sentence. I feel most confident when I blink.
I feel most confident when my wife has my back.
Oh, that was powerful. I mean, I think I'm going to take the gold. I've had some good ones, people to answer, but that was the best one.
Seriously, man.
For sure, man. I love that. We're better together. I love that. All right, guys, that was Aaron's last 5. Aaron, again, I appreciate your time, man. Like, again, I cannot thank you enough for what you've done for me and my fiance, and then making us feel at home. This is home for us, regardless of where we're at, and I do appreciate that, man.
Yeah, man. This life's been awesome. I'm going to miss you guys.
For sure. We'll be back, but
I hope so.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.